Taking up file item number 32, AB 581. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 581 by Assemblymember Gomez, an act relating to water.
Mr. Gomez.
Mr. Speaker and members, today I'm presenting Assembly Bill 581, which will require recipients of Proposition 1 water bond funding for multi-benefit ecosystem and watershed restoration projects to post signs acknowledging state support for such projects. This bill will increase transparency and inform Californians how their tax dollars are being spent. There is no opposition to this bill. I ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Gomez. Seeing no discussion on this item, the clerk will open the roll. All members vote or desire to vote. All members vote or desire to vote. All members vote or desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll. Tally the vote. Ayes 72, no 0. Measure passes. File item 33, passed and retained. Moving to file item number 34, AB 796. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 796 by Assemblymember Nazarian and others, an act relating to health care coverage.
Mr. Nazarian, you may open.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. AB 796 directs the Board of Psychology to develop a list of evidence-based treatment modalities for purposes of insurance coverage. Additionally, the bill extends the sunset date on the autism insurance mandate to January 1st, 2022. The bill recognizes that there is no one-size-fits-all treatment for an individual diagnosed with autism. Therefore, the goal of this bill is to ensure patients with autism receive and have the coverage for the services they need. AB 796 has received strong bipartisan support in both policy and fiscal committee, and with that I ask for an aye vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nazarian. Seeing no discussion or debate on this item, clerk will open the roll. All members vote or desire to vote. All members vote or desire to vote. All members vote or desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll. Tally the vote. Ayes 72, no 0. Measure passes. File item 35, AB 1005. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1005 by Assemblymember Gordon and others, an act relating to beverage containers, making an appropriation therefore.
Mr. Gordon, you may open.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. AB 1005 would extend the sunset on California's successful plastic market development program, a program which incentivizes reuse of California-generated recycled beverage containers. In my first year in the Assembly, I authored an expansion and a sunset extension for this program. In the years since, there's been a significant increase in the in-state reuse of California-generated material. Reusing California-generated material in California is not only environmentally beneficial, but it creates and maintains jobs in our state. In fact, the year after my prior bill was signed into law, I traveled to Riverside to attend the opening of a 220,000 square foot post-consumer plastic recycling plant. New jobs were created there. The creation and continuation of those green jobs can be traced back to this program, and that's why I seek to extend the program, and I would respectfully request an aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Gordon. Seeing no discussion or debate on this item, it's a 54-vote bill. Clerk will open the roll. All members vote or desire to vote. All members vote or desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. The clerk will close the roll. Tally the vote. Ayes 71, noes 1. Measure passes. File item 36, AB 1180. The clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1180 by Assemblymember Cristina Garcia, an act relating to utility service.
Ms. Garcia, you may open.
Thank you, members and Mr. Speaker. AB 1180 creates a pilot program at the Public Utilities Commission designed to collect data on the cost and savings associated with all forms of payments accepted by large water utilities and their customer utilization rates at the various payment options. The pilot program is aimed at answering this question. Does it still make sense to require utility customers that pay their bills with their credit card or debit card to also pay a transaction fee? A lot has changed in the decades since the legislature adopted the transaction fee requirement for the PUC-regulated utilities. Today, most people use online forms of bill payment. The use of checks has declined significantly. The percentage of low-income customers paying their bills with credit cards is about the same as other customers. And unbanked and underbanked customers now have access to prepaid debit cards. I recognize that we have a responsibility to ratepayers to ensure the reasonableness of any cost being passed on to them. And I look forward to working with the PUC, ratepayer advocates, and other stakeholders over the next few months on the details of this bill. I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Thank you, Ms. Garcia. Mr. Obernolte, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Colleagues, I rise in support of AB 1180. The opposition to this bill revolves around the belief that allowing ratepayers to pay the costs of credit card and debit card transactions will unfairly shift those costs onto the ratepayers who currently pay by other means. However, I feel that this belief is mistaken. In testimony before the Committee on Utilities and Commerce, it was established that the average cost currently of processing a utility-related credit card transaction is $1.26. And further, if we approve this program today, the economies of scale involved will reduce that cost to an estimated $1 or perhaps a little bit less. And colleagues, that's just for credit card transactions. Debit cards typically cost about half of what credit cards cost to process. Now, as a business owner myself, I have a hard time believing that the cost of processing a paper check mailed to a utility company currently is any less than $1. And therefore, I believe that if we approve this program, we will actually reduce costs for ratepayers in California. I urge your aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Obernolte. Seeing no additional discussion or debate on the item, clerk will open the roll. All members vote or desire to vote. All members vote or desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll. Tally the vote. Ayes 70, noes 1. Measure passes. File item 37, AB 1348. The clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1348 by Assemblymember Irwin, enacting the state government.
Ms. Irwin, you may open.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. AB 1348 is a bill that will help California bring back more of our federal tax dollars through the competitive grant process. California receives less per capita than the national average. AB 1348 would address this disparity by establishing a federal grants administrator to coordinate and maximize grant opportunities for the state and for local governments. Given that the typical competitive grant ranges in the millions of dollars, even small improvements in the cumbersome process of identifying, applying, and competing for federal grant dollars can mean huge returns for Californians. Thank you, and I ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Ms. Irwin. Seeing no discussion or debate on this item, clerk will open the roll. All members vote or desire to vote. All members vote or desire to vote. All members vote or desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll. Tally the vote. Ayes 74, noes 0. Measure passes. File item 38, AB 1395. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1395 by Assemblymember Salas, enacting money laundering.
Mr. Salas, you may open.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, this is a follow-up measure from Assembly Bill 1439, which passes floor 78-0 on a bipartisan vote. AB 1395 incorporates violations of gambling laws into organized crime and money laundering statutes. Despite existing law and Supreme Court decisions, new examples of illegal sweepstakes gambling cafes have emerged. AB 1395 would provide law enforcement with the necessary tools to combat egregious cases of organized illegal gambling. With that, I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Salas. Seeing no discussion or debate on this item, clerk will open the roll. All members vote or desire to vote. All members vote or desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll. Tally the vote. Ayes 66, noes 1. Measure passes. File item 39, pass and retain. Moving to file item 40. That's AB 1449. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1449 by Assemblymember Lopez, enacting the student financial aid.
Ms. Lopez, you may open.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. Today I'm proud to present AB 1449. This bill allows the California students to have high school diploma and GED to have transfer for a California Community College to a university to be eligible to transfer entitlement grant. AB 1449 has received a strong bipartisan vote, and I asking you to I vote.
Thank you, Ms. Lopez. Seeing no discussion or debate on the item, clerk will open the roll. All members vote or desire to vote. All members vote or desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll. Tally the vote. Ayes 73, noes 0. Measure passes. File items 41, 42, and 43 pass and retain. We've already dispensed with file item number 44. Moving to consent calendar. No consent calendar today, members. We are moving to announcements and adjournments in memory. Members, if you could please take your seats and give your respectful attention to the members who've been granted prior permission to speak on an adjournment in memory today in the Assembly. Members, please give your attention to Ms. Baker. Ms. Baker, you are recognized at your desk for your adjournment in memory today.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. I rise to ask that we adjourn in memory of Ted Weiskamp, constituent of the Assembly District 16 who passed away on November 24th. Ted is survived by his wife, Ann, his son, Todd, his daughter-in-law, Barbara, his sisters, Jenny and Stella, and many nieces and nephews. His brother Chris and his sister Agnes predeceased him. Ted grew up in Medford, Oregon, where he attended Southern Oregon College of Education before joining the United States Air Force. He was a lieutenant and served as a navigator from 1955 to 1959. He received a BS in electrical engineering from Oregon State University in 1962 and then came to California. He worked for Sandia National Labs in Livermore from 1962 to 1971 and the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory from 1972 to 2000. These are the labs that have been part of protecting our nuclear arsenal and our defense system for decades in California. During this time, he received a master's degree in physics from the University of California at Davis, and he was very proud of his work on the Apollo-Soyuz test project and the flat panel ferroelectric electron emission display system, critical technologies for our defense. He liked fitness and the outdoors, and he loved to bike to work. He and Ann together were part of a major program in our community called Livermore Fitness Day, starting as far back as the early 80s. On this day, participants could run a 5K, a 10K, or a bike on 2 different routes. These are the kind of runs that we see a lot going on in our community, but he was part of starting them in our community from the very beginning. He also began the 90-Day Wonder program to help participants get ready for the runs that were coming up. And he partnered with our health systems to ensure that Fitness Day was a part of their outreach and programs. In fact, he worked with children's art projects and our regional parks to ensure that health and fitness and children were involved in our sports activities in our communities. And they walked frequently from home to their work and to their projects, Ted and Ann together. Ted served on the Valley Care Health System Board of Directors and as president of its board, and he also served on the board of directors of the Bank of Livermore and Livermore Amador Symphony Association. After retirement, his energy was strong and he kept going. He was part of so many other programs and volunteerism in our community, including our Valley Care Health Library, which serves constituents in the Tri-Valley area. He was also very much active as a volunteer with our Livermore Library's English as a Second Language program. He felt passionately about working hard to help others succeed in their language skills and getting them to citizenship status and helping them bring their families to the United States. He was very respected for his hard work in this area, even though it wasn't something a lot of people knew about. Ted did develop dementia and did require 24-hour care, but he and Ann were able to still be together through a wonderful senior living facility in our district. He will be very greatly missed, and we urge your support for adjourning in his memory today and recognizing the loss that Ann and his family have had. And I thank you, colleagues, for your kind attention.
Thank you, Ms. Baker. Mr. Bloom, you are recognized for your adjournment in memory.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And members, it's with sadness that I rise to adjourn in the memory of Glenn Lewis Fry, known far and wide as one of the founding lyricists, musicians, and voices of the rock band The Eagles. And if you think about lyrics, music, and voice, the Eagles were dependent upon all three, and no one shone more than Glenn Fry for that distinctly California laid-back musical style. Mr. Fry was born in 1948 in Detroit, Michigan, and began playing piano at the age of 5. As a teenager, he began playing guitar and participating in the 60s rock scene that was emerging then in Detroit. And after graduating from high school, he had his first television performance playing a single written by future rock music legend and his lifelong friend, Bob Seger. By 1969, Fry had moved to Los Angeles, where he would meet Don Henley, Randy Meisner, and Bernie Layden, playing backup for a then-emerging rock star named Linda Ronstadt, which they did through the summer of 1971 until the four formed the Eagles. That group of four individuals would make the Eagles one of the world's best-selling groups of all time. As one of the group's chief songwriters, Fry would go on to write or co-write hit songs such as Take It Easy, Peaceful Easy Feeling, Already Gone, Tequila Sunrise, Lion Eyes, New Kid in Town, Heartache Tonight, and How Long, and the list goes on and on and on. And if anyone were to quote a couple of lines from some of these songs, they're indelibly associated with the music that Fry also helped write. You can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave Hotel California. One of these crazy, crazy nights. There's going to be some heartache tonight. And I'm not going to sing it. And I know you won't let me down because I'm already standing on the ground from Peaceful Easy Feeling. Fry would play with the Eagles from 1971 until their last just completed 2-year tour, History of the Eagles World Tour, that ended this past July. Though they did take what Fry would call a 14-year vacation from 1980 through 1993. But even during that period of time, he was prodigious in his work, never stopped working, producing 12 top 100 hits as a solo artist that included soundtrack songs for Beverly Hills Cop, Miami Vice, Thelma and Louise, and Ghostbusters. He also acted and appeared in hit shows such as Miami Vice, Wise Guy, Nash Bridges, HBO's Arliss, and in the film, Jerry Maguire. Fry was an inspiration to generations of rock singers and artists of many musical genres. And this has been made clear with the outpouring of condolences and memories of so many in the music industry. But he was also an inspiration to all of us who love music, writing and performing songs about life and love that left an imprint on many a soul and that we get to cherish forever. Passing at the age of only 67, he leaves his wife Cindy, their 3 children, Taylor, Deacon, and Otis, and we will greatly miss Mr. Glenn Fry. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bloom. Ms. Melendez, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Colleagues, I rise to adjourn in memory of one of our extended family members of the Assembly, Janice Kelly. She was the niece of longtime Assemblyman and State Senator David Kelly. She passed away earlier this month after battling cancer. She was 55 years old. Though Janice was taken from us too early, she certainly did not fail to leave her mark on this world. Born and raised in the city of Hemet, she attended Hemet High School, where she was a star athlete and pioneer for women in high school, cross country, and track. After high school, Janice attended Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, where she earned a degree in ag business management. And upon graduating, she returned to Hemet to start her career in the family ag business. At the same time, she volunteered as a cross-country coach at her old high school. From there, she fell in love with coaching and decided to change paths and make that her career. So she became a PE teacher and the head cross-country coach at Hemet High School. She was beloved by her athletes, and she was certainly known for her unorthodox coaching techniques, like planning a run, swim, breakfast party, ultimate frisbee workouts, and team bonding camps at Mammoth Lakes. Her other passion, of course, was her family. She did enjoy spending time in Idaho with her brother and sister and taking individual trips with her nieces and nephews to make their relationship closer and stronger. Senator Kelly and the entire community mourn her loss. She will always be remembered by the lives she was able to touch as a sister, as an aunt, and as a coach, and I thank you for adjourning in her memory.
Thank you, Ms. Melendez. Mr. Thurman, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. I rise to adjourn in memory of Judge George D. Carroll, who was a Richmond resident and had a very distinguished career in public service. Judge Carroll was an Army veteran who relocated in the 50s from New York to Berkeley and then later to Richmond, where he opened his law practice, becoming the first black attorney in the city of Richmond in 1954. In 1961, Judge Carroll became the first African-American city council member in Richmond, and in 1964, the first African-American mayor of Richmond, and is largely considered to be the first African-American mayor of a large American city. Judge Carroll was then appointed by our current governor and then governor, Jerry Brown, in 1965 to become the first African-American judge in Contra Costa County. And to this day, the only courthouse in Richmond bears the name of Judge D. Carroll, as does a park, and the memory of Judge Carroll in the minds of many who have had a chance to experience him as a leader, as a public servant, and to experience his civility as a leader. I had the honor of meeting Judge Carroll and appreciate his generosity in advice and guidance to me on how to become a better public servant. He was generous to everyone in the community and is deeply loved and will be deeply missed. And I hope that you all would join me in sending our well wishes and prayers to Judge D. Carroll's family. Judge Carroll will be recognized on this Wednesday at the same time that we will be on the floor here in this chamber. And I hope that you will join me as we adjourn in the memory of Judge D. Carroll, who passed away on January the 14th in his sleep at the age of 94.
Thank you, Mr. Thurman. Dr. Weber, you are recognized at your desk.
Yes, Mr. Speaker and members, I rise today and sadly to ask you to adjourn in memory of a dear friend in San Diego, Margaret J. Williams, who passed away Saturday, January 16th at the age of 86. Margaret was born in Washington, D.C., and grew up in the LaDroit Park neighborhood of Washington, D.C. She graduated from Dunbar High School, which we know is a famous high school in Washington, D.C., where so many African-American heroes and sheroes graduated from. Margaret was always instilled the fact that she should try and do her very best, and she did all of her life. To her surprise, she became divorced at an early age and the mother of 3, raising children 7, 8, and 9 years old by herself. When one thinks about that, that sounds pretty American. That's what we do nowadays in terms of the marriage situation. But I want you to put it in context of an African-American woman in the 1940s who's divorced, who has children, and what that says about the support that she will and will not receive from society, the opportunities that are available to her, because that not only was limiting for white women, but surely as an African-American woman, it became quite a challenge. And yet Margaret did not see that as the end in itself, but merely as a semicolon in her life. She then got a job working for the government in D.C., took care of her 3 children alone, and got her bachelor's degree, where she then became a teacher for over 30 years in the D.C. area, providing for children what we call wraparound services that she did in terms of teaching and caring for every aspect of the children's lives. We were fortunate in San Diego. In 1993, she married a San Diego icon, Leon Williams. Leon Williams, as some of you may know, was the first African American to be in an elected position in San Diego, serving on the city council and serving on the board of supervisor, and serving really as a statesman for San Diego, who has done so many things. And in 1993, while I was on the school board, I had the opportunity to meet Margaret Williams. Margaret seems like a small person who had a wonderful spirit, but she was strong, and she was determined, and she was encouraging and persevering. And she became really Leon's greatest cheerleader. She married him in 1993. She had 3 children. He had 6 children. They were all adults by then. But she was able to blend a beautiful family where everyone loved and cared about Margaret, and she cared for everyone. She was such an encouraging spirit. I often think about her in terms of being the wind beneath so many people's wings in San Diego. I miss the fact now that she would call me when she knew I was having fights on the floor with the school board, or even more recently here in this house with 953. And she'd always say the same thing. Baby, how you doing? You know, we're so proud of you. We love you. Leon and I are just so proud of what you're doing. And that was Margaret, a quiet spirit but a strong spirit. And she was always there for everything that took place in our community. I think about her so often because she reminds me of a piece of art that I like. Some of you know that I collect Shona, and I have some pieces that are 500 pounds in my yard, and because they're strong stones out of Zimbabwe. And she reminds me of that, this stone that's so strong and yet has been captured and shaped by water and spirit and love, that becomes a beautiful piece of art. That underneath that stone is all these various colors and shapes and waves that go through it. And that's really Margaret's life. In 86 years, she's had so many wonderful experiences, and everywhere she's gone, she's been the wind beneath so many individuals' wings that we will all miss her immensely. So I ask that you join in memory of Margaret Williams, the wife of the iconic Leon Williams, who's a person in her own right, was strong and enduring. Her family will miss her. Leon will miss her immensely. Her 3 children will, her grandchildren will, and all of us in San Diego will miss the fact that we won't hear her say, baby, how you doing? You know, we're so proud of you. Leon and I are so proud of you. I ask that you join in memory of Margaret Williams.
Thank you, Dr. Weber. Announcements, members. Today, Monday, January 25th, is the last date of notice intent to remove a bill from the inactive file for the purposes of amending the bill by the January 27th amendment deadline. Tomorrow, Tuesday, January 26th, is the last day in the Assembly to submit amendments to the desk if an author wishes to amend by January 27th. Amendments are due at the desk by 5 p.m. or before adjournment of session. The session schedule is as follows. Tuesday, January 26th, check-in session. Wednesday, January 27th, floor session at 11 a.m. Thursday, January 28th, floor session at 9 a.m. All other items remaining will be passed and retained. All motions shall be continued. Seeing and hearing no further business, I am ready to entertain a motion to adjourn. Mr. Holden moves and Ms. Waldron seconds that this House stands adjourned until Wednesday, January 27th at 11 a.m. Quorum call is lifted.